Hello again, my name is Ernest Minu. Let's settle for the details now. Health experts warn of crisis in 2 weeks as authorities admit infrastructure and personnel are overstretched. Let's hear from a pharmacist with the CDD, Kwame Sapon, who spoke with Daniel Dazi on Prime Morning. Insert from Prime Morning. Daniel Dazi spoke with health experts from the CDD. You know, Kwame Sapon is a pharmacist who has been giving us a lot of perspective on COVID-19. He also spoke to some virologists as well, who are warning that if measures are not taken in the next few weeks to avert this, we're going to face with a serious crisis. We can now hear from them.
2 weeks to the point where this ripple effect of the hospitals being full at the moment would move from being full to overflowing. And that is when we would start having problems, because then those people would start going into the community and quality of care would be affected further. And that is what I'm talking of. And so all through this, I have shied away from the mortality conversation, because mortality is a net effect of all these failings. And I still believe we can keep our mortalities low if we can reverse these insidious problems we're having. And that's why I say we have 2 weeks to do that. If we don't do that in 2 weeks, then we have issues coming up.
Those issues will be more people dying.
More people being unwell, more people getting infected. And if that happens, it means more people with comorbidities or unknown comorbidities will be infected, which would make the disease prognosis poorer. And yes, mortality would start going up. Most likely be quality of care because of the relatively high COVID cases to doctor ratio. And the fact that if you heard Dr. Hammond, he was saying that a lot of the facilities do not have the specialist critical care capabilities that Komfanoche has. So those two things are an issue if Komfanoche doesn't have enough beds. Because I did say last Monday that for every part of the world, this disease has shown that between 5 and 10% of all their cases would require some high level of care, out of which about 2 to 3% would require serious critical care. So if you're looking at Ashanti's 2,300 cases, right, you should expect that around 200 of them would require some form of care.
I think as clinicians, we should look at interrogating the fact that it could be from the quality of care. I mean, it stops nothing, so that we can improve it. So I think it's a good premise to start from. Let's assume that everyone, that the younger folk that are dying without any documented comorbidities are dying because there is a drop in the quality of care, and we'll take steps to improve it. I think that will go a long way to just help the cases, instead of being defensive about it and trying to fish out for comorbidities where there may be none. It will just go a long way to just muddy the waters.
And still on COVID-19, on the AM show, Roland Walker spoke to the chairman of the Greater Accra branch of the GMA and virologist at the KCCR, Dr. Michael Owusu, on whether or not the strategy we are having now would, seeing that we have 8,000 active cases, will hold what they're calling for some localized lockdown. Let's hear from them.
No, I mean, it is good news to have a confirmation. I call it a confirmation because I have been involved in managing COVID patients, and I can tell you for a fact that I can, at least for Kolebu Teaching Hospital, we've been using, it comes under a broad category of medications called steroids. You know, and we've been using steroids for moderate to severe cases, those needing RTUK. And what we found that it restricts or improves the the cytokine storm. You know, that leads to some of these bad outcomes. So we know that it works somehow, but this has come to confirm that indeed it may be useful, and therefore we should continue what you're doing, and what you are doing is right. You need that confirmation in scientific circles. But remember what Dr. also said, it is not for you to go and fetch. We did that to hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. It became short in the market. people started popping it left, right, center. It has side effects. It may be toxic if you not use the right way. Steroids can cause all sorts of problems. You know, it can even paradoxically, remember, reduce your immunity and even increase your risk of getting COVID infection in the first place. So it has to be used under supervised condition by a trained healthcare practitioner under the right, conditions. And it can lead to diabetes, it can lead to hypertension. Again, as I said, it can suppress your immunity and a whole lot. So yes, it has come as good news and we are happy. What has to be done is also to probably set up our own protocol to see whether it works to the same extent as it is found somewhere, so that we can continue to use it safely for the benefit of our cohort that we have.
Yes, Roland, I think that it's important that we really look at the strategy. And like my colleague Dr. Yok mentioned, if you look at the 66 deaths, 9 of these deaths are in people who don't have any underlying condition. This is what makes it scary. The news that is always in comorbid, people with comorbid conditions, the story is not exactly the same. So as young people who are even managing, handling, testing these viruses, you cannot predict how it will behave when you are infected. So it is more difficult. And there's what we call a force of epidemic. As if you have 10 people surrounding you who are all infected, you can put on all the masks you want to put on. The force of epidemic will catch up on you. And this is what is happening. As more people are becoming infected, your risk of exposure increases. So how do we deal with this? I mean, there are strategies to deal with this. They have the mitigation strategy and then the suppression strategy. When we started as a country, we applied the suppression strategy where you order restrictions, you close borders, you close social gathering, you make people sit home so that you can reduce movement, which is one of the major risk factors for infections. And then give some breathing space for the health sector. I mean, let people plan well, let people inject resources, expand your treatment centers, expand isolation centers, buy PPE, buy laboratory logistics, do all you can do. And then after that, you open up or ease restrictions whilst you put and you monitor the cases as they go by. With the way the cases are surging and with all the contributory factor and with the possible prediction that these cases are likely to double in the coming weeks and the deaths are likely to increase, the mitigation measures are in place, wearing of nose masks, which is mandatory and all that. This is fairly good. But then if everybody wears nose masks, you can cut the virus growth by just about 50%. That one will not be enough to reduce pressure at the health facility. If you want to succeed in crashing the epidemic curve, then you will have to go by what China and others did earlier. You have to impose or order another form of restriction, which will restrict movement, so that as people move, they just stay home. And once they stay home, it gives you some breathing space to manage the few people that come to your health facility. So that at least the health workers will also have a breathing space, because as more of them are becoming infected and are getting out of the facility, it will come to a point where they will empty the place. But then as people are being infected and moving, 2 or 3 times of their numbers are still moving and also infecting. I mean, I know people who are positive, who are supposed to undergo self-isolation, but they decide that they have to go to work.
Now we're going away from COVID-19 to bring you some more on education and entrepreneurship. The Royal Commonwealth Society, with partnership from the Multimedia Group, presents the Commonwealth Home Individual Management Education Program, CHIME, and that is a program providing business education courses to those in lockdown, isolation, and also during the COVID-19 pandemic. Courses are designed to help people emerge from home isolation better, equipped to assist their companies and the economies. Now, joining me in the studio is the chairperson of the NCCE, Madam Josephine Nkrumah, and we're also joined by John Appiah, who heads the Commonwealth Africa office. Madam, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for
John,
having
if you
me.
can hear me, thank you for joining us here on News Desk. Well, we don't have John yet, but let me start with you, Madam Nkrumah. CHIME sounds like something entrepreneurial, something of enterprise. I'm wondering why the NCC is interested in this.
Well, we're very interested.
When we know that civic education is really your heartbeat.
civic education is our heartbeat, and this actually falls within the domain. And somebody will ask how, and I say simply, you know, civic education is about a thriving democracy. And we know that thriving democracies are hinged on people who are self-sustaining, who are engaged, who understand the issues of governance, people who understand the value of their vote. In addition to that, part of civic education is about empowerment. Empowerment so that you don't become a burden to the government, but rather you add value to government or to governance or to the community in which you reside. And
that's a very interesting point to raise there, because a lot of the times, and the political season is here, yesterday we heard from Sheikh Aramaya, who mentioned that there's time and they know that people are targeting the Zongos. They're going to use a lot of their youth who are idle. And so it is important that we empower these people to be able to do something, and then we can have less of these violence as an enterprise in itself.
Very true. So for instance, we know this particular program is targeted at young entrepreneurs. And so when you have young people, especially in these times, who don't have a lot to do, businesses have shut down, people are unemployed, this is the time for us to take advantage of courses like this that ensure that people come out stronger with a certain skill set that adds value to themselves and even adds value to entrepreneurship in terms of their own enterprises that they may want to engage in. So when you come out understanding that you're stronger, you have these things, then you know that, for instance, that where government has these stimulus packages for many, industries, of course, we know that it's also not a bottomless pot of cash, and everybody at some point knows there is a cutoff. So when people come out knowing that they are not necessarily going to be dependent on such stimulus packages, but having acquired certain skills, they can embark on their own ventures, then you know that you have a citizenry that is becoming more self-sustaining. And in relation to unemployment, of course, this is another way of tackling the issue of unemployment. And so NCC is interested in this, not only because we know what kind of value it adds to democratic governance, but also because even for our staff, for one of the courses, which is on career development, these are some of the subject. If you look at the modules, they're very much like what we also do in NCC for our staff.
And we'll come to the modules shortly, because I see something very interesting there I want us to touch on. But John joins us via Zoom. John, thank you very much for joining us here on News Desk. Madam Nkrumah has already gone ahead to tell us about this program, and sounds very exciting. But what is the unique selling proposition for this, and what do students especially gain from Chime?
Thank you for having me on, but I think Josephine Nkrumah, who's very dynamic with the NCC, has said it all. I think the unique selling point is the fact that at a time like this, and I've been watching the news since morning, there's a lot of deaths going around, there's a lot of problems from a health perspective, but we realize that COVID is a problem that is multifaceted. So that means that the approach also has to be multifaceted. So whilst we're fighting COVID from the health perspective, it's also important that we fight COVID from the economic perspective. And that means upskilling. That means getting new qualifications, new skills, and these courses are accredited. They are accredited, they come with certificates. There are 36 modules in all, of which there's 14 certificates available. And they are accredited, they will look great on your CV. Apart from that, they do add a lot of knowledge to the students. And it's great to be able to use that to actually push economic growth post-COVID.
And that sounds very interesting, especially seeing how economies over the world are being challenged because of COVID-19. I want us to run through the modules quickly. John, I wonder if you can start off with us with some of the modules, then I can come to Madam Nkrumah. Run us through, you said 36 of them. If you can just take us through a few, especially those that are readily available.
Hey, I feel like you're testing me on a WAEC exam at the moment, but I'll try my best. So project management is one, operational management, business finance, business administration, business management, customer service, communication techniques, and those are 36 modules, like I said. With some of them, you have to complete probably about 8 to 9 modules to get a certificate.
Okay.
But there's a very interesting part, which is the career development modules. There's 11 of them, and each of those ones actually gives you a certificate. So I know I'm definitely taking some. But like I said before, you know, in economics, you have endogenous growth theory, which has to do with the fact that economic growth is actually based on the population actually being knowledgeable and having the skill set and qualifications to drive economic growth. And that is our unique selling point, and that is our primary objective. So for more information, people can go to the website. We have a specific website for this, which is www.chimeghana.org.
Okay.
So that's Chime, C-H-I-M-E, Ghana, G-H-A-N.org. If they want additional information, they can call the numbers 059-460-4444. So this number is reachable on WhatsApp or by phone. That's 059-460-4444. Or check us out on the website. And it's absolutely amazing. And we are happy to have Joy on board. We're happy to have.
And we're excited, John, to partner you in this initiative. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Thank you very much, John, for joining us here on Newsday. Let me wrap up quickly with Madam Nkrumah in just a minute. I know you're excited about this, but what should we watch out for as we wrap up on this conversation?
In terms of Chime or in terms of other?
Well, in terms of Chime.
Well, in terms of Chime, I'm hoping that the youth will take full advantage of this. It comes at, you know, it's almost, one can say, cheap, 185 cedis to undertake any of these courses. And I know that there's nowhere in Ghana, at least, where you would have that kind of money for the kind of value this brings. So I'll encourage the young entrepreneurs to take full advantage of it. For NCC, the career development module is akin to what we have done in the past, and so we are happy to take full advantage of this in times of this virtual learning, particularly a few of it, influencing people, negotiation skills, presentation skills.
And all of those are important as far as the broader civic education
and
is
it gives them accredited certification.
And we'd love to go on with you, but right now, we have a feed from the Information Ministry. Dr. Bedusa Akodie, who is the Director of Public Health with the Ghana Health Service, is at the Information Ministry at the bi-weekly news conference. Let's go there live now. So we have a freeze in that feed there. Once we correct that, we'll go back to the Information Ministry for the last in the bi-weekly series on COVID-19, where we have some updates from the Ghana Health Service and the relevant agencies. Let's go back to the Information Ministry.
As the time of mentioned 16th June stands at 6. Total number of cases that are active stand at 8,395, and these are people that will be managed on treatment sites in isolation centers, and some of them under home management. 14 cases are classified as severe, and 4 are considered or classified as critical that are on ventilators. The slides will give us the distribution of the cases per region. These are the regional distribution. Total number of 339 new cases reported from 36 districts in 8 regions. The regions that reported cases are what you see here. Greater Accra reported 154 cases from 17 districts. Western region, 58 cases from 2 districts. Ashanti region, 41 cases in 5 districts. Central region, 38 cases in 1 district. Eastern, 38 cases in 1 district. Eastern region, 15 cases in 2 districts. Volta, 3 cases in 4 districts. Bono East, 9 cases in 3 districts. Northern region, 9 cases from 1 district. And Savannah, cases from 1 district. The next 2 slides would give us the various differences that we had from the previous updates till now. And Greater Accra reported total of 154 cases, new ones. And those districts, 17 districts that reported cases are what you see on the extreme right column. Eastern region, 15 new cases from Upper Menya, Krobo, and New Gabin. Central region, 38 cases, all from Cape Coast. Western region, 58 cases from Wassa, Menfi, Takwa, and Suaim. Upper West region, okay. Volta region, 13 cases from Ho, Agotime, K2 North, and Pandu. Shantu region, 41 cases from Asqua municipality, which is now the hotspot for the region. Obuasi 7 cases, Kumasi Metro 1, Ejoso 1, and Mampo 1. Saboba, Northern region reported new cases from Saboba, and Savannah reported 2 cases from Central Gonja. Bono East, 9 cases from Pro East, Techiman, and Upper West region, Upper East, Northeast, T, West North, and Bono East, Bono region, and Ahafo region did not report any new cases. Your Honor, the Minister of Information, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the situational update on the case count on COVID-19 for the country, Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bedusako, the Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service. I want to invite the Director of the Ghana Health Service to explain to us this amended discharge policy is. There's been a lot of work, you inform us, that has been going on looking at the data of how the virus manifests in people and the kind of risk levels associated with that. And based on that, you have decided to amend the discharge policy. If you can give us first a background and explain to us what this amendment means.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will just be, as the Minister for Information said, I will take you through the policy decision, the rationale and the evidence behind the policy. As you saw from Dr. Bedusako case, you can have a significant number of full active cases. As whether they are really active. Active cases also mean that these are the people we need to worry about, we need to take care of. And so we need to really properly define them. We also know about recent concerns, though not wholly true, about the congestions in our hospitals and isolation centers. These have all created part of it. Ghana's discharge policy was started from March when we started having our case, and those were based on the WHO guidelines, which was published, an interim guideline published in March 2020. In those guidelines, it was more of a test-based strategy, and the patient was discharged after getting 2 negative PCR tests within 24 hours apart. Initially, because the numbers were few, this was adequate policy, but with an increased number of cases, now we are talking about 12,000 plus, it brought to fore some challenges, and not just Ghana. Globally, everybody started having a challenge. First was the rising cost of tests. I've already told you that the test is not as simple as we make it look. It's quite expensive. We also talked about the fact that because of that policy, each person who has had 10 positive had to do 3 tests to be discharged. That's your first positive test, your first negative, and your second negative. If you are lucky, you don't have repeated positives along the way. So you have a minimum of 3 tests, and if every test costs you so much, you see what it takes you to. The increasing workload because people were staying in hospital just waiting for their results to be able to be discharged. That also had implications for sustainability, feeding, etc. And most important, the social cost to the patient who is not ill but is being kept to, as it were, stay awaiting a result. And so that was the last one. But new data started coming up. The new evidence is that the viral shedding and clinical presentation led to many changes in our policy, not just in Ghana, Singapore, the European countries, and WHO, among others. So on the 27th of May, a new release from the clinical management guidelines modified the discharge criteria. Let me also just pause here and explain the difference between discharge and recovery. They are not the same. Discharge means, as I'll go through, means that you are healthy, you don't pose a risk to anybody, and so you are discharged. But we'll go ahead and see that I've tested negative, and then pray that you are viral. But I'll give you the symptoms. So the new criteria combine time-based, symptom-based strategies. That's the duration when you were contracted up to the time, and also what are the symptoms? Are you still coughing, fever, etc.? These are the 2 combinations that will call. That is more that helps us. For cases discharged after a period of time and symptom-free, that is for those who are not showing any symptoms. Period of time is the initial, after the initial test was done. So basically, we have the time-based, that is those who are not showing the symptoms, is about how long was he tested positive and how is it now. And for those who are symptoms, are they still exhibiting symptoms after a certain duration of time? That will determine whether we discharge them. So based on that, WHO and our guidelines made 2 recommendations. For symptomatic patients, that is those who have exhibiting cough, fever, who are sick, for say, 10 days after the symptoms of onset, plus at least 3 days without symptoms. So 10 days from the positive test was done, up to the time that you have 3 days, a minimum of 3 days. So if you, after 10 days, you do have to show that no symptom for the next 3 days, you are discharged without a test. For those who do not have symptoms, WHO recommend that for 10 days after initial positive test, you should be discharged. There are new evidence that we can show. Evidence of many studies have shown that they continue to shed virus from the upper respiratory tract, that is from the throat, nose, etc., approximately 7-12 days. And in respect to the number of the viral load, after a certain period, they do not share. In Ghana, our own case management team have followed about 146 patients, and all of them had tested. The average time for testing 2 negative was 14 days. So in view of all the evidence that is coming out across the globe, we decided, with all the context that I have done, to review our policy to reflect the new trends and also decongest the place, and also allow us to focus more on the sick. So we as a service met all our directors and our stakeholders, other scientists were consulted, and these were the new protocols that we had agreed to. That for patients who are asymptomatic, that's for example somebody in PCC, etc., if you are admitted to the Pentecost Convention Center or any of our isolation centers, 14 days after the initial positive. The initial positive is not when you receive your results, it's the day your sample was taken, or that is when you positive, not when the results came. 14 days after that, we will discharge you without a test. For those who are symptomatic, we do 14 days after discharge, and then if you are without, after the testing positive, if you are without symptoms, you are discharged home. After 3 days of no symptoms, you are discharged without a test. What we'll do is that then you'll be asked, because you don't pose any threat, you'll be now doing a negative test on the at home and come for review, and we'll see that you. So that's when that will do. So we have reviewed that. We realize that quite a significant number of people who still remain on our books because their lab results are not in, would all be discharged unless they have conditions. So basically, this is a new policy. The policy is that 14 days for asymptomatic cases. For time that you are tested, you took your sample, you'll be discharged. So if I was sent to, they took my sample on the 1st, I got my results on the 3rd of March. I moved to PCC on the day I arrived. I know that on the 14th of June, I'll be going home. And you have some predictability as to when you go. For those in hospital, and usually within 10 days, symptoms abate. Then we'll do 3 more days. If you remain stable, then you are charged. And we hope that will also help us have us more time to focus on the new cases, to give more attention to those who are newly positive, and then also create space in our facilities to be able to take care of more cases, which we really do not hope that we get. Thank you very much.
Dr. Baji, thank you. So if I understand you, we haven't amended the recovery definition. What you have done is to amend the discharge policy in line with WHO guidance and then the local evidence. Correct? Yes. Okay. All right. Colleagues, we'll take your questions at this point in time. We'll get as quickly as possible because we've already spent some time. So if you have questions, could you? I have 3 here. Do I have any other takers? Yes, sir. So do I have any other takers? 5. And should I wrap up after these? Okay. So I'll wrap up after these 5. So I'll start with you. Let's space out, please. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Sarah Paku, Media General. Please, I would like to find out this discharge policy that is being amended. When the person goes home, we understand that after you have been treated, there's a likelihood that you can test positive again, if I'm right. If he goes home to stay with family and friends, what is the plan like? Is he going to isolate some number of days, or he can live or her normal life whilst living with the family? And I also want to find out if this is to decongest the facilities. Was it really true that these isolation centers and treatment centers are congested or are full? So people, even in the Greater Accra region, being transported to places outside the region. Please, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Frank Lanyo Megashe with GH1 Television. I have a quick one on evacuation of Ghanaians. not just in light of the concerns of killer evacuation charges required of the UK evacuees. I'd like to know if government has a subsidy for Kenyans who are willing to come home but do not have the means to do that.
Government subsidy for evacuees? I'll take that one. Let's go.
My name is Kujajman. I work with CTV. I just want to find out that when the COVID cases started trooping, we listed a number of hospitals can do Ghana's case management. We want to know, has the number increased? Just, you can mention them for us. Has the number increased? Because right now we're getting a report from the Ashanti region that some centers are full up, therefore they are calling on private medical health facilities to come and join. And we also want to know that do we still maintain that people who want to come to Ghana voluntarily should pay for their upkeep? Because yesterday, I read from a member of the minority that government came to Parliament for some funds to cater for these people. So it's amazed as to why government is asking persons like to pay for their upkeep. Thank you.
Honorable, good morning.
Hold on. If I just may understand your question correctly, government went for funds for the management of isolation and treatment centers,
or
government went for funds for the upkeep of evacuees. They are two different things. So what was he referring to? Just
government went for money for upkeep of persons who will be quarantined and isolated, which includes people who come from outside.
They are saying that includes.
Yeah, that's
okay. So, for the upkeep of evacuees, I think that's where the question. Okay, Kojo. Yes, sir.
Honorable, good morning.
Morning.
I'm Jesse from Cry FM. Pacho, my question is, as I say, Mba painful, nurses no, Sambriana.
I will say a pimp for an nursing mothers.
Yes, nurses.
Okay.
I call Ejuma Sambriana.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Morning, Honorable.
Yes, madam.
Oh,
yes, go ahead.
But my question is, you share a friend, Ghana Health Service for website, so omomu new death na account. You shall be benign, Mr. Berthier was for below 40 years. Mr. Baku Krambo, who we are not only any lining Yarabia man who ye. See, per se, find DNA course, and I say, virus now, you go to customer study the way I disobeyed, since it was a new direction, now, course this new data without any underlying sickness.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues. We'll wrap up the question and then provide answers. Let me quickly take the two that require government responses. Is there a government subsidy for evacuees? No, I do not have a brief to the effect that there's a government subsidy for evacuees. There are conversations about how the cost of upkeep to evacuees can be better managed. If it means in further conversations with the operators of the hotels that are hosting these evacuees, if that is a possibility, that engagement is still ongoing. But I do have a brief that says that central government is providing a subsidy, the upkeep of evacuees. The second matter is that I'm not aware that government went to Parliament asking for money for the upkeep of evacuees. I am not aware of that. I think what we are aware of is that government went for money to provide for isolation centers. And as is being explained, for example, when persons have tested positive, etc., they are moved into isolation centers. That doesn't matter. Cost or their upkeep is not at their expense. For evacuees, apart from the category of evacuees who have been determined as destitute, who were sometimes living on the streets or who had been sent, let's say, by government to programs, etc., who have been assisted by government to come back and are being catered for government, for those who are coming voluntarily, they are prior informed of the cost of upkeep, and indeed they have to show proof before they are given tickets that they are willing to undertake that cost before they buy their tickets from the airlines. So just to clarify, I am not aware, I don't have a brief to the effect that voluntary evacuees, people who are not destitute, people who are not, let's say, many government program that are being brought back, voluntary evacuees, are aware that government has gone for money from Parliament, their upkeep. The approach is that they are prior informed of facilities that have accepted to accommodate them, the cost associated with it. And they choose their facilities and inform the authorities of saying before they are given a ticket to board an aircraft. And when they arrive, what they have chosen, they are ferried into those facilities. However, government has received concerns that the costs are a bit steep, and if there is room to engage with the providers of those facilities to do something about the cost, is something that remains under consideration. So I want to come to Dr. to help us with some of the questions.
Thank you very much. The first question is about what we do those who have discharged. The very reason why we isolate or we quarantine is because you have a virus that you can pass from yourself to somebody else. We are discharging you because you are not able to transmit any virus to anybody. And that's the very base. The other evidence is the fact that after 8 days, you cannot even culture the virus in those who are positive, which means that there's no live virus in the person. So once you do the 14 days, you are unable to transmit to anybody. So you go home as a free person, you can do whatever, but you have to continue protecting yourself and others, just like with the non-protocols. And so we are doing discharge because you are not able to transmit, so you don't have to have any special precautions on anybody. But we are still interested in the eventual recovery protocol, and that's why that will be done on an outpatient basis. Now, this is not being done because our isolation centers were full or anything. If you look at the places, I mentioned that the PDC, which is the main isolation center in the country, has a capacity for 600 cases. The highest we ever got in a particular day was 580, because we have moved some people from, we have some evacuees, we had to move people to the place. As of the 15th, 2 days ago, we had about 360 people there, so it was not there. But the social cost of somebody who is healthy and having to wait for results is important. And so we will need to look at, apart from the cost to the state, there's also a cost to the person. And so this evidence, there's no point in keeping anybody beyond that period, especially when they are asymptomatic. So that is not our hospitals, yes, but then we have a challenge in a place like Kumasi. But one of the reasons is that there are also people in those few sites who are waiting to have their recovery by the protocol before they are discharged, even though they are not a threat to anybody. And so it will still go to help free not only the state resource, but also the social cost to the patient. CTFM. Yes. You see, in any hospital or clinical setting, there are days that you are going to have a few more cases than usual, and there are days we are, from what we are seeing, we are not seeing any persistent surge in a case. There could be a 2-3 days that you can have a few, and the next 3 days you have no case. And so if you look at the trends, which we will share very soon, we are not seeing any surge apart from Ashanti region, where we felt that the number of beds there were fewer for the number of cases. But in this new policy, will help free up a lot of space.
The question is specific. Has there been an increase in the number of facilities?
Yes, I'm going to go there. I'm here to get to that. As the city of, we started with 33 centers when we started the response. We had 33 treatment centers. We have 71 treatment centers. We had initially 450 beds allocated for them. Now we have 700 beds. So the treatment beds, no isolation, treatment from 450 to 700. So remember I showed the 450 here. Now we have 700 beds across. Of the 71, 20 are technically closed because those regions do not have any cases. The Bolga had people there, they've all been discharged. So nobody, so we have 20 isolation treatment centers that are currently not being used. So that's where we are. So, and that's the situation. We are still going to have additional numbers. We are creating additional 12 ICUs in Rage. There are additional ones going to, especially in Accra, the Pantine area, Doha. We're still looking at expanding the number of cases. Should there be any surge? I think
for pregnant women or breastfeeders.
The city wanted to, I don't know what I should, okay.
Before we wrap up, if you indulge me, so what specifically are you doing with the Ashanti situation now? Yesterday, the Economic Director there announced that the situation is getting rampant. What immediate steps are you taking?
Yes, even before the statement, we are also on the ground. So there have been moves to expand already, and work is going on in expanding spaces in Kumasi South. We have new beds in Central that we are going to use, but our plans to create a bigger center, a one-stop shop where we can like Ghana East so that we can have the cases done. For pregnant women and medicine mothers, the protocol is very simple. These protocols of social distancing, hand hygiene, and the wearing of masks protects everybody, whether you are at home or at work. We do not have any reason to say pregnant women should stay at home or not, but this is a corporate policy that if you feel that you want to have some change, but we expect that all of them will go through the needed protocols to protect themselves and their children. And so we do not have the initial stage where we were decongested. But if you are doing social distancing in your workspace, and you may have to sort of let someone off, more free time, you may look at all those things like vulnerable people, the elderly, those who, pregnant women whose risk levels are higher. You may decide that you can let them go and have some more time off. So thank you very much.
Below 40 deaths.
Yes. Yeah, with the case, well, I'd like Dr. Bedusa Akodie to respond to the last question on the, and they give more explanation on the deaths.
I understand the question that people that are within the lower age bracket, few of them that have been that have succumbed to the virus and died, and then not with comorbidity, and that is the virus changing itself to be more aggressive or more virulent. We have to take the situation in totality, the entire concept. All the cases that we have are the people that are dying, younger age group, those with or without comorbidity. And that's the context that you have to look at this. And not within the, you pick one case and use it to describe the situation and indicate that the virus is more virulent or more aggressive. So looking at the total picture, the age, those people at the higher age group, and then those with comorbidity are those that are more at risk of severe disease, at risk of critical condition, and then also at risk of dying from the virus or the infection. So it's no evidence now to indicate that the virus is changing itself. If you look at the total picture the entire people that we do have. And you have individual differences. Some ordinarily, the older you are, the most likely or the risk of having a more severe and then critical condition that probably could lead to death. However, you have individual differences, and some people at a quite young age group could also die out of it. So the youth should not think that those to have severe illness, carry ill and dying is for the aged. Everybody can have it. Those without comorbidity should also not think that I have no hypertension, no diabetes, no other condition, so even if I have it, I have no risk of severe disease. So clearly, let's everybody, based on your immune status and then your physical makeup, depending on the viral load that you happen to have, you can still have severe condition, carry ill, and even die out of it. So I think that is the simple answer to this. There is no evidence now that the virus has changed this, and that the people with comorbidity are most likely or most at risk to have severe illness and then suffer. But then anybody can also, as an individual, based on your makeup, can also suffer some of the extremes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to top up, one of the challenges we are having is people are coming late. The disease has a natural cause, and those we see early recover. Even the number you see as critically ill, more than 90% do recover. But the challenge is that because of stigma, some people stay home. They don't want anybody to know their positivity. And they come in late. If you are young, if you are old, you wait, you stay home, and you come breathless, then it becomes a bit more difficult for you to be managed. And so we are appealing, people should report early. Those who report early are or those who also recover. If you look at the death and you go through us next week, we'll probably share with you a significant number come in and die within 24 hours. So they come in a bad situation, even though they know their status longer than that. So appealing that people should come in early so that they can be safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. Colleagues, as we wrap up, we'd like to reiterate the government's call to heads of regional and district coordinating councils that the executive instrument that makes the wearing of masks mandatory is out. And while we salute the efforts of those who have already started higher levels of compliance, we want to encourage those who have not, that the EI is out and they are expected as regional ministers, as MMDCs, to step up enforcement within their own jurisdiction. The mandatory nature of the nose and face mask ensures that if majority of people are wearing it, those who have a viral presence in their system will not be able to spread it to other persons. We should be each our brother's keeper at this point in time. We thank you. God willing, on Tuesday morning, we'll re-engage for our next COVID-19 Ministers' Press Briefing. Thank you.
The latest on the minister's press briefing as far as COVID-19 is concerned, our case count has gone up. We are now at 12,900 and over 60 cases, with the death rate still at 66. We also know that the active cases are in excess of 8,000. That is 8,395. So specifically in terms of the case count, we have 12,929, just a few digits away from hitting 13,000, and the active cases 8,395. The death toll is still at 66, and that's the latest from the press briefing. And the last point the information minister just made there about the executive instrument backing the mandatory wearing of the face mask. It is now available. It is law now. If you do not wear the face mask, there are sanctions. We'll bring you details of that EI in our subsequent bulletins. But also for you to know that the in terms of the testing and also the recovery, the policy has not changed from the Ghana Health Service. It's still 14 days after you've tested a double negative. And in terms of the discharge policy, that has slightly changed. Asymptomatic cases are being discharged after 10 days at the centers. The minister also did note that subsidies are available for evacuees, for those stranded abroad who want to return to Ghana but do not have the means or find it quite expensive. Government has made available some subsidies. However, we do not know how much and how these funds will be made available. Depending on where you are, we'll get those details for you also subsequently. But also, the director of the Ghana Health Service did note that there are some 20 treatment centers that are not being used, and we have some additional spaces also as well, 12 ICUs at Ridge and a few centers across the country. The Ashanti region situation for him is peculiar, and they're trying to deal with that. You have my colleague Ohimintia bring us up to speed on the expansion, the renovation going on at the Kumasi South Hospital, where the maternity block is being prepared to receive patients for treatment of COVID-19. And so that'll be it for the updates from the news conference. We're taking a short break. When we return, we'll bring you more stories on COVID-19 here on News Desk. Stay with us. And now let me take you to the northern regional capital, Tamale, because there's an incident of flooding. The hours of heavy rain led to the flooding of parts of the metropolis, with residents of Taha Bahali, among others, cut off temporarily from the rest of the capital, with a dilapidated bridge that links these communities badly in need of replacement. Residents are worried the onset of the rains could see more flooding situation in the coming months. A resident, Imoro Ahmed Ibrahim, said the situation has been so for many years since he moved to the area. Martina Bugi reports the residents who spoke to her said efforts to get the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly to fix the problem has yielded no results.
This has been the situation for some time now. I think I came here about 3 years ago, and every year we experience this particular flooding. Anytime it rains heavily, it overflows, and then cars and motors cannot cross. During school days, sometimes children will not go to school because their parents cannot take them to school. Yeah.
This morning there was a heavy downpour. Right. How did you cross?
Well, I had to fold up my trousers, then lift my legs onto my motorbike with the direction of some residents who will direct you where to pass and not to fall into a pothole. You are able to manage, but cars cannot do that. So that is the problem now we are facing.
The situation is very terrible this morning. Well, we had that last night. We had a downpour, and then because this has been the usual flooding experience. And the main issue is our gutter. The gutter is not all that good, and because of that, anytime there is a rainfall, people suffer this. We have been counting on the leadership to come on board to help, but all to no avail.
Let's go live now and speak to correspondent Martina Bugri for some more on this situation. Martina, tell us about the people who have been displaced and how they are coping in this situation. Well, we seem not to have Martina on the line, but we'll go there for some update on this. The rains have set in. We've had that warning from the meteorological agency that we should expect some more rains. Last week, Tuesday, when it rained here in Accra, we saw the impact. One person died. They told us of more rains expected in the coming days across the country, and especially within this season. The Tamale area is noted for flooding every time it rains, every time we get into this season, and a lot of their bridges also being affected by the floods. We'll get there shortly and speak to Martina Bugui for the latest on this, those who have been affected and how they are managing the situation. Martina joins us on the line. Martina, very worrying pictures that we are seeing, especially with the bridge. But before we come to that, tell us about the people who have been affected by the floods last night.
So community neighbors, people who are living around these areas had the water come into their rooms. It rained about an hour. It was so heavy that the whole of that area got flooded. And so this morning, commuters on that road had to be guided by the assemblyman for Fo and some other residents to be able to cross the bridge. The water had washed some portions of the bridge away, and it's left with just a small portion that is left. And so as we speak now, long and big vehicles cannot cross to the town center. Now, there are several communities after this bridge. And so what it means is that if it is not fixed, these people in the coming weeks will not be able to come into the city center.
And that is a very worrying situation. But tell us about what is affected. I know homes have been inundated. How about farms, which is the main stay of the people?
Yes, so you see all the water on the footage you have seen. These are farms, you know. People have planted, the crops are beginning to grow, and those ones are all washed off as we speak now.
Have we seen NADMO there today?
I spoke to the NADMO regional director, and he said that no report has been made yet, but it was too early in the day, and so they will be doing some rounds to some of the areas they know are prone to flooding. And so they'll be giving us an update later in the day. I must say that this road is a very important road because all the waste from the city center, they will need to cross this bridge to the landfill site to deposit waste. And so if this one is cut off, it means that waste from the city will not be able to cross, and that would be a dangerous situation for the area.
Martina, just before you go, what is the Metropolitan Assembly doing? You spoke to some residents who say they have made contacts with the Assembly, but they're not forthcoming with information. Have you tried speaking to them? Have you heard anything from them?
What we do know is that when I spoke to the MC several weeks ago, she said a contractor was on the road. But it looks like the bridge is not part of that contract. And so we'll be making follow-ups to get to know what is happening for that particular bridge.
Martina, thank you very much. And we'll be following up on this to bring you updates in our subsequent bulletin.